Welcome to City Services Monthly. I'm your host, Donnie Turlington. Joining me this month is Kim Strabel, President of the Greensboro Sports Commission. Kim, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Donnie.
Well, sports is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I know it's something that's near and dear to your heart. You've made a career out of it. Talk a little bit about your background and sort of where you've come from.
Well, before I joined the Sports Commission 5 years ago, I served the previous 2 decades, 20 years at Greensboro College as their Director of Athletics, coached a little bit while I was there as well, but I've worked on college campuses most of my career, locally also at Guilford College initially, so that's been a big part of what I've done and been involved in coaching from youth level through college, so it's a big part of my life.
A lot of folks, look at Division I athletics and think of that as the big time athletics, but when you're talking about Greensboro College and Guilford College and Division III, there's a lot of passion involved in Division III athletics, and the students that are there are not there on athletic scholarships. They're there, to truly be student athletes, and that's got to be a neat experience.
Well, it is, and there's a bit of a misconception or perception about, since you don't award athletic scholarships, that somehow that maybe means your product isn't very good.
Right.
And there are some athletes playing in Division III that wouldn't have a chance to play at any level other than Division III. But there are a lot of outstanding. You were at Hampton City. You saw a lot of those athletes there at one time. But some really outstanding athletes in Division III, and the other misnomer is a lot of those students are getting as much financial aid or academic scholarships as they would an athletic scholarship. Yeah. So you still will have good athletes at that level.
I will always tell folks that maybe have never experienced the Division III world, go to Guilford College or go to Greensboro College and watch a Greensboro versus Guilford College basketball game and look at the athletic talent that's on the court, and you would be amazed because those guys look like they could go play for Carolina or anybody else.
Right. The skill level's there. A lot of times they're an inch or two shorter or whatever the sport might be, or 20 pounds less or whatever, but really some great athletes and great coaches in Division III too. A lot of people, that's where they get their start, and it's a great experience for them too.
So from Division III athletic director to president of the Sports Commission, talk about that transition and sort of what transpired.
Well, I was on the board of directors when the Sports Commission was created back in 1989, and we were really one of the first. Our national organization, the National Association of Sports Commission, actually its charter is here in Greensboro. It was headquartered here, if you will, legally anyway, and we were one of the first couple dozen cities in the country to join we call it NASC, and now that association has 800 plus members, and that involves not just sports commissions, but it might be chambers of commerce, convention and visitors bureaus, other types of authorities. But sports tourism has really become a huge deal across the country, and so I was a part of that board from the get-go. So, and in that sense, I've never not been a part of the Sports Commission.
And so, as president of the Sports Commission, talk about there's a board of directors. There's also, you guys have a staff and the work that you all do.
Correct. Well, we're a tiny nonprofit. Our staff consists of 3. So when we talk about me, I'm talking we as a staff. But what we like to describe as our responsibility, if it came down to one word, and that would be relationships. Mm-hmm. When sports commissions were created, what was recognized up until that point, almost always things were done through chambers of commerce or committees of chambers. As things become more specialized over time, they realized that there was a market that needed people that understood what they were doing and what they needed, and that would work with them with their facility needs and coordination, their local organizing committees and so forth. So that's how sports commissions actually got their traction, was meeting a real important need there for rights holders to be able to come to your community. So we're big on making sure we have maintained and sustained local relationships with our facility owners, whether that's our Parks and Rec department, whether that's colleges, universities, Greensboro Coliseum, any sporting facility, private ownership facilities like Prolific Park. We need to have good relationships with all those folks, because if you don't have facilities, you're out of the game. You can't do what we do. And then, of course, on the other side of the fence are the rights holders, those who actually own events. We don't own any events at all whatsoever. So we simply try to help put hands together and put situations together where they can, in fact, bring their event to Greensboro.
So if you play sort of a liaison role between maybe a venue and an event, I guess you can play sort of both sides of it, right? If the Coliseum says, hey, we've got an open date in 2017 that we'd like to fill, and there's X, Y, and Z events that are out there, would that be a role that you all would go play and go look at those X, Y, and Z events and see what would be a good fit?
Well, potentially. We're a big partner with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They're our biggest funder and our best supporter. They have a fantastic staff that's working all the markets. They have a couple of people specifically dedicated to the sports market, but we're all the time looking at events all across the country with rights holders. We attend major conventions and other situations where we're face to face with rights holders, but we're constantly looking at calendars, looking at schedules. I had a meeting right before here with a basketball event for this coming spring. That needs about 11 courts, and a lot of that will be anchored at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
So that's an ongoing process for us.
So you will sit in front of a lot of folks throughout the year to basically recruit them to come to Greensboro for whatever their event might be. How strong of a selling point is Greensboro and the different venues and the different sports opportunities that we have here in our city?
Well, I absolutely love my job because I love Greensboro. I did from day one when I arrived here in 1987, but it's a city that's, when you talk about selling, Greensboro sells itself.
Sure.
And we're blessed with some things that we can't control. The fact that we have a wonderful climate here, that we're central to the eastern seaboard where the majority of the population in the country live. We're accessible, our great highways and our 3 airports that are within easy reach of Greensboro. So we're set up well in the central part of North Carolina to be able to attract events like this. We have a Coliseum complex that is off the charts.
Right.
For our size community to have that asset is unbelievable, and it's not just a great facility, it is run as a first-class facility. Those folks do an incredible job, do over 1,100 events a year on that campus. So that makes the job much, much easier. Obviously, there's tremendous competition. We're not the first to learn that sports tourism was a big deal and offered real strong economic impact for the communities.
Right.
So that keeps ramping up, whether it's an arms race of facilities or what have you. Everybody's in the game now, so we have to constantly be looking for events that are going to fill those open dates. And like I say, the Coliseum is extremely active in recruiting their own events besides sporting events as well.
You mentioned economic impact. Talk a little bit about economic impact and how important sports tourism is here in the city of Greensboro, because I've seen some numbers that are north of $160 million in terms of impact. Yeah,
for 2014, that's a little north of $160 million. I think over the last 5 years, that number is about $737 million. Almost approaching $1 billion. If you look at the 8-year, we will be over $1 billion in estimated economic impact. So,
and Kim, I take it that takes into account hotel rooms, folks coming and spending money in restaurants and that sort of thing.
It does, and I always use the word estimated because it is an estimate. We use facts and figures that we have from the rights holders, from history of events and so forth, bookings from hotels and that sort of thing, as well as obviously ticket sales. With sports tourism, a lot of people don't really understand that when you look at ticketed events, things that would be your major things that we all read about and hear about, it only represents about 5% of the sports tourism market.
Right.
I mean, it's a very small percent. The rest are amateur and youth sports that really are family oriented. The moms and dads and aunts and uncles and so forth will come for events. So that's a big part of what our focus is in Greensboro is on youth and amateur sports, because we know those are folks that will bring their dollars to our community, dollars that would not be here. They would be somewhere else other than Greensboro.
Right. I grew up in Virginia, and my family still lives in Virginia, and when they will come down to Greensboro to visit, they will stay in pretty much the same hotel every time. And typically 9 out of every 10 times that they're there, they will come over to our house and say, well, we've got a softball team that's in our hotel room with us, or our girls soccer team. And I keep thinking of you guys and thinking, well, the Sports Commission is doing its job, because they keep putting people in hotels and they're playing in these events, and it's things that nobody else knows about except for the players and their families, but they're spending money in our community.
Absolutely. There's a lot that doesn't meet the radar. We know the things that attract television and the media. Obviously, those things get a lot of attention, and that story is told over and over and again. But other events, I mean, even huge events like our Super 32 wrestling tournament that started up at Moorhead High School, that was moved to the Coliseum, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. But But that event, they cap it at 1,550 high school athletes. They went to online registration 3 years ago. This year, that event sold out in 5 minutes.
Wow.
5 minutes.
Wow.
And they also have a middle school and an elementary division. Again, a huge event in the middle of the fall when you got football and
Right.
a lot of other distractions, major distractions going on, and most people don't even know it was here unless you're staying at one of those hotels with all these wrestlers.
Well, and the neat thing about it is most people don't realize when you have a wrestling tournament or a swim meet, those are not things that are over with in 2 hours or 3 hours and they're done. They're not just things that bring people in for the afternoon, but those are things that bring people in for extended 3 or 4 days.
Exactly.
Got to stay in a hotel room, got to eat dinner, got to eat lunch, and those are lucrative opportunities.
They really are. A lot of the one-day type things are done by local regional teams and organizations, but I really I was pretty naive to this process many years ago. I just thought when they would announce that an event was a $6 million economic impact, that some huge check was dropped off somewhere in Greensboro, and that there was some cash somewhere, and just didn't understand the concept that those are just dollars that are basically that are out there that come into your community, and they do need a place to stay, they need a place to eat, they need entertainment, they need gas for the car, all the above, and that all those things allow businesses to have employees who live here, who pay taxes, and circulate those dollars in the community. And that's what it's all about, is creating that situation where it's not only a quality of life issue, it's kind of exciting to be in a community where a lot's going on and where you do have visitors coming and enjoying what we enjoy on a daily basis. But it's still something that's so valuable to the community in so many other ways.
And I enjoy hearing you talk about the relationship that you have with the Coliseum Complex and with our Parks and Recreation Department. I think a lot of folks forget about things like the Bryan Park Soccer Complex and some of the other things that the Greensboro Parks and Recreation Department offers that you all are able to take advantage of and help bring events to our community as well.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The attitude within Parks and Recs is nothing but support. They understand it. Obviously, their major and first charge is to satisfy the needs of the local community, as they should, but understanding how sports tourism plays into that, and they have great facilities that they maintain to a very, very high degree. Places like the Bryan Park Soccer Complex is noted all over the country for the quality of the surfaces that they play on. So the commitment is there, the understanding that it's all important to Greensboro, and that helps even subsidize what they're doing. That's so important. Again, if you don't have facilities, you can't do what we do in Greensboro. So having that partnership and that understanding is important. And like I say, the Coliseum, I just can't say enough about what they do and how hard they work at what they do.
Yeah. Well, Kim, I ask you to hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break.
Okay,
and be right
great.
back. We'll be back with more here in just a few minutes. Welcome back to City Services Monthly. I'm your host, Donnie Turlington. Kim, thanks again so much for joining us. We've put a screenshot up here of just some information that your office has provided. And I think the neat thing about this is that so often here in our community, the big ticket items are the things that get the attention. When the ACC men's basketball tournament is here, that's the thing that everybody thinks about from a sports standpoint, or when the Wyndham Golf tournament is here. But with this, it's reflective of the wrestling that you talk about, and the track and field championships that come through, and the aquatic center, and how there's something going on there just every weekend. Yeah,
the aquatic center was a game changer. I mean, it is such a high demand facility. There aren't many like it in the country, and the way the Coliseum chose to build that, construct it, and really use the space for aquatic needs with 3 bodies of water and the seating capacity and so forth, and not needing to pack in all the extra meeting spaces and things because you're footsteps away from the Coliseum complex. So a lot of intelligence went into that decision, as well as intelligence in having state-of-the-art amenities in the facility. I know when that was being built, I know Matt Brown sent his staff to scout facilities in the country, and one of the first questions was, if you had it all do over again, what would you do differently?
Sure.
And better, what's new and better, and because that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. And we've got a facility now that's got very, very fast water. People just give rave reviews to that. But it's used year round. There's a public element every single day almost. The Learn to Swim program is fantastic for second graders. Just an incredible outreach and opportunity that they use that facility to benefit our community. But that facility is utilized around the clock, and the diving too. We can't skip the diving. It's become a big deal. Not just your traditional diving, but even the diving with the stars concept.
That's right. That's right. They were on TV last year. That's
exactly.
Right.
So it's a certainly multi-purpose in that sense.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier more than $160 million in economic impact over the 2014 calendar year.
Correct.
How many events does that take into effect?
We track about 60 or so events that we have some hand in. When I say we're talking a team here. We're not talking about the Sports Commission. We're talking about the CVB and the Coliseum or whomever it is, Parks and Rec, whoever might be hosting the event. But about 60 events is what we track, and the numbers aren't even inclusive of other numbers. For example, the Wyndham is a tough thing to track because the traditional way of doing hotel rooms and so forth. We get a lot of people come into that event, go home, come back the next day, and so forth. But the PGA, because of it being an international event shown in 200 some countries, they estimate any of their PGA events has about a $30 to $40 million economic impact. Wow. So we don't even include that number.
Right.
So
when
you look at big events like that, U.S. figure skating coming up, some of the swimming winter nationals and so forth. Those kind of things get a lot of extra attention, a lot of extra play as well. So we don't discount that at all. But there's a ton of things go on that never we'll never see a TV camera.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the ones that do see the TV camera, the Wyndham, I think, is rapidly becoming one of the folks here in Greensboro and maybe throughout the region one of our favorite events. And since the move to the new golf, I'll call it the new golf course, but the different golf course instead of being the Greater Greensboro Chrysler Classic and other things out in Forest Oaks, that has really changed that, and the date change has been significant. But talk about the Wyndham and its growth and just what the type of event that it is now. Well,
I use the word hero judiciously when I talk about it, but Bobby Long, Mark Brazel, they're two heroes in my book. What they've done, not just with that event, but what they've done for the entire Triad region. We talk a lot about triadism and trying to bring our communities together, and there's one that does and does it very effectively. So that footprint is now well established. I think initially, we were fortunate that the FedEx Cup point situation happened and the playoffs happened, and all of a sudden that date became, as time wore on, desirable and put us at a competitive advantage for some golfers who needed a better standing or a better placement in that playoff. So we like it, we've embraced it, and the community's embraced it. And I think the Wyndham is just an off-the-charts event, a historic event for Greensboro, and really has put Greensboro on a map for a long, long time. Well, and certainly being back at Sedgefield now, it kind of brings it a little bit closer to our community. And again, to me, that's just an event that continues to get bigger and better every year. It is, and they keep innovating. Every year I go out there and I say, that is a good idea. Yeah. I look at this or that, the new venues for things, and they're always looking ahead and looking, how do we make this better? How do we create a better fan experience? Mm-hmm. The trial with the cell phone, allowing cell phones, which doesn't happen anywhere else. Right. That was innovative and that was fan friendly, and found a way to make it work without it being intrusive or bothersome to folks. So there's just a lot of things like that I really admire and appreciate about Wyndham. I hope all of us do, because it's a gem for this community. Yeah. Well, there's another gym that's coming up at the Greensboro Coliseum, and that's the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, and it's back for a second time after being here in 2011. Correct. And it was such a success here in 2011. I'm sure that played a key role, but can you talk a little bit about how Greensboro came to be the host for that event again? Well, sure. I think U.S. figure skating, if you look at how a lot of these, what we call them NGBs, national governing bodies, but how they look at where their venues are, you tend to see some cycles where venues come back around 4 or 5 years later. They were a little skeptical back in 2011. It was a post-Olympic year. In that sense, it was safe because that's sort of a transitional year. Sometimes people will retire or leave, and so now it's kind of like the new generation stepping up. Yeah. So they weren't sure we were a big enough market compared to where they'd been and what they've done. Spokane was probably the most comparable. we hit it out of the park. We really did, and congratulations to North Carolina and to this region, because we showed up in large numbers and had a great experience. First time in the history of that event anywhere to have all the events, the Fan Fest, the junior skating and so forth, and the competition all under one roof at our Coliseum complex. Made us unique in that sense. Those fans, and unfortunately I've been able to go to some other Skate America and other events where we'll promote our event, and people will come up without even Greensboro, we had a great time, we can't wait to get back there. And I said, well, you're really going to enjoy it this year, because now we got padded seats that are a little bit wider, and the new areas of the Coliseum that will really impress you. So we're looking forward to it. We think it'll be another big hit in Greensboro.
Well, I think that's the neat thing too, and it's a testament again to Matt Brown and the Coliseum staff.
Absolutely.
But very rarely do you hear anybody that goes as a spectator and a fan to one of these events that doesn't have a good time or that doesn't have a good experience. And I've traveled around and sat in a lot of bleachers and a lot of stadiums throughout my career in different arenas, but it's neat. The Greensboro Coliseum is just a neat place to go, and you can host so many different things there. It's a great experience.
Well, it is, and the one thing that Greensboro, sometimes we call it our calling card, but hospitality is so important to us. We have a cadre of volunteers, mostly through our tournament host of Greensboro organization, but folks that step up to volunteer and help us with all that. We simply couldn't do what we do without that kind of support and really love of Greensboro. The wheelchair service that the Coliseum provides is off the charts. There's nobody else in the country does what they do to the extent that they do it. I mean, they pick them up in the parking lot, help them to their seat, they'll help them to get something for them at the concession stand. Yeah. I mean, it's just wonderful.
It's the little things that make
Absolutely, it's the little things that make a difference.
One of the subtle things I think that folks forget is that the ACC is headquartered here in Greensboro. Talk about your relationship with the ACC and how important that is for Greensboro to have them right here in our backyard.
We could not be more blessed to have a conference like the ACC. Birthed here in 1953 out at Sedgefield, and really grown here, and they have a wonderful staff, and they're very free to talk about how much they enjoy and embrace Greensboro. They said nobody does it like Greensboro. John Swafford, there's rarely a time when he's speaking to a group where he just tells it, if you want one of our championships, you better look at Greensboro, because nobody does it like Greensboro. So we appreciate that. We don't take that for granted by any stretch of the imagination. We obviously are very aware their footprint is expanded with the expansion of the conference and where those are located, and that some of their events will change. We understand that, but we're, this year we did women's soccer for the first time ever. We've been doing women's golf, we've done baseball. Besides the basketballs, the women's basketball has made a longer term commitment to us as well. So those are all great. So we consider the ACC a real partner for this community, and what really gets under the radar as well is how many visitors come into Greensboro with whether it's athletic directors or faculty athletic reps or whomever for meetings and other kind of functions throughout the year. So there's, in terms of an economic generator for the community, it's a lot more than people realize.
When you look out on the event horizon over the next 2 or 3 years, and I'm imagining that in addition to having a significant number of short-term events, you're also focusing a lot on things that are coming up 3 or 4 years down the road, and let's put some bids in and those types of things. To the extent that you're able and comfortable, is there anything that might be out there as a target that you would say, boy, that would be a great event to bring to Greensboro, we would just be such a natural fit?
Well, there are a lot of those that would be great fits and that we're natural. One that we haven't, they've actually finally put it on their website, but it's not been, the contracts aren't fully signed, but for example, you talk about Way Out, 2019, we're committed to host the AAU Junior Olympics, and right now that's about a 16,000 participant event, which by then, based upon what some of the things they're doing, could be a 20,000 student.
And that's just for
event.
participants.
That's participants. And a big part of that's track and field, but it's it's everything from jump rope to the stacking that they do to cheerleading, you name it, weightlifting, judo, the martial arts, and so forth. It's a big thing where you use the Coliseum complex. Obviously, will be a big part of that. A&T will be a great part of that at the track and field, but that'll be all over the community. But that with the state games, of course, are coming up. We're kind of partnering with Winston and Burlington and High Point to pull that one off for 2 years with the state games, North Carolina. We're working on an event for 2016 that again, has not been publicly announced, but will be a major event involving non-traditional athletes, I'll call it
All
that.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where it's not that so much trade secrets, but
Yeah.
some of these things take a little bit of time to get
Sure.
to get under contract
Sure.
and so forth. But,
And I guess the point is, you're always the wheels are always churning. There's always something that, okay, we've got that event. Now let's go find the next one.
this is the sports tourism industry is incredible, and it's changed so much. I mean, we watch some of the national trends, like stand-up paddling is now at the top in terms of growth. We've known about team sports like lacrosse and so
Right.
forth that have really grown, but these adventure races and adventure sports, be it Tough Mudder or things like that, it's just incredible
Yeah.
what is cropped up. Triathlons are really hot right now
Sure.
and have been. So there's a lot of things that we are keeping a close eye on and looking for ways that we can involve that. Almost all of these national governing bodies want to know that you've got a presence in your community and that you can put together a local organizing committee, and that'll help us with the event, with volunteers and so forth. So that element's important. That's why our youth, what Parks and Rec does and other clubs do,
Yeah.
are really important, because they provide that ownership, that local ownership that these folks are looking for. Because it's like with gymnastics. We tried really hard for several years to pitching them to bring events here, and finally last year did the American Cup and the
Right.
Lucan Cup. And again, that was one of those things that was kind of put together and made for Greensboro, but we really performed well to the extent that they now, next summer will be the new combined event that they're bringing. They just did it for the first time last year in Louisville. We're next in line. So, those are kind of things that really require some local traction with your youth and with your organizations that can help promote it.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thank you so much. Our time
My
is up
pleasure.
for this month's edition of City Services Monthly, but I know that our residents at home and our viewers have enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about the Sports Commission and what you all do.
Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate it.